I'm Catherine Sheeran, host of the podcast Horse Tales with Cat. My guest today is a show jumping rider who hails from Armidale, New South Wales, but now splits his time between Ocala, Florida, and southern England. Rowan Willis successfully competed at the Grand Prix level in Australia and Europe for more than 20 years. He left an indelible impression when he made his debut in North America in 2018, winning the Shell Cup Derby at Spruce Meadows aboard his mount, Evers W. He went on to represent Australia that same year for the first time aboard his longtime mount, Blue Movie, at the World Equestrian Games in Tryon. The team finished sixth there, securing qualification for Australia at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. In 2019, Rowan finished second in the Masters Rolex Grand Prix at Spruce Meadows aboard Blue Movie. This year, Rowan has a string of young horses he is campaigning. He won the 4-star Grand Prix at Thunderbird in BC in April, as well as the 5-star Grand Prix in Spruce Meadows in early June aboard his mount for Delano PS. Rowan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Catherine. Good to be on the show.
I always love to lead with how did you come to the sport? Because from what I understand, you started at a very young age.
Yes, my mother had always wanted a horse, and my father bought her one for her birthday present. And then my sister and I wanted one as well. I think I was 4 and she was 2. So yeah, it just started then.
And how did the teaching and training evolve? Because I don't know what the setup is in Australia as far as riding.
Yeah, we're in the country, so we just kind of rode home and went to Pony Club and then do all the local shows and gymkhanas. And we did a bit of everything, kind of a bit of camp drafting, chasing cattle, show jumping, sporting events, hack classes, riding classes. Yeah, and we also mustered cattle and just did everything on horses.
And from what I understand, you chose to leave Australia and go to England when you were 18. And there you were training with very well-known trainers from England, Fred and Sue Welch. How did that evolve?
I was having a gap year before I was meant to go back to university. And Jay Hayes had actually come over to Australia and given a clinic. And I told him I was going traveling, and he said if I wanted to go and ride for him for a bit, I could. So I went to Canada for a few months. And then there was a lady who ran the riding school at Negs, where my sister went. And she said if I ended up in England to give Fred and Sue a ring. So I did and went and rode there for a month or so. And then they offered me a job. So I went back to Australia and told my mum I wasn't going to university. I was going back to England to ride horses.
Well, and what is the setup or situation in Australia? Because you're not the first show jumper I've spoken to not from Australia. I've spoken with a couple of people from New Zealand, but it seems like there's not a lot of opportunity to advance in the sport in those countries. And I just wondered why, because they're large countries. It's just, is it because of the grand expanse that it's just difficult to get to competitions?
Yeah, look, I think, we have a lot of competitions and growing up it was mainly kind of agricultural shows and riding on all different types of ground, and which probably helped yesterday at Spruce when it was pouring with rain, which didn't happen that often in Australia, but we hoped it did. But yeah, I think it's just such a vast country and population. There's only 25 million people in Australia and we're a huge area, and then we're so isolated from the rest of the world. So in Europe or America, there's just a much larger population and it's much easier to get to other countries.
How did you decide to come to North America from England to compete? It's not that unusual because the sport is very big in the States, but I just wondered what shaped your decision, simply because obviously it's a big business in Europe as well.
Yeah, I'd always kind of wanted to come to America and compete at a few of the shows, and had some good friends, Australian friends in America, and they helped me. And then beginning of 2018, I kind of had 3 horses that I thought were worth bringing over, and also with WEG in Tryon in mind later that year. And so I really wanted to come and jump in Florida for the winter and then go up to Spruce Meadows for the summer and kind of be very well prepared for WEG.
And I imagine two of those three horses were Blue Movie and Everse W. Who was the third?
The third was Blue Movie's half brother called Shark.
Yes, I did read
Yes.
about Shark.
Yes, he won a lot of kind of speed, smaller classes. He was a very fast horse.
So you arrive at Spruce Meadows and you win the Shell Cup Derby.
Yes.
I mean, I've watched that event for years on TV and it's grueling. So
Was.
tell me a little bit about that day, because if there's one thing I know about riders is they remember all of these rounds.
Yes, I was lucky enough to write a verse for Dinah and Steve Postford, and that actually bought him from me for an Australian friend of mine, Sam Griffiths, to go eventing. And he was very good eventing, but he wouldn't settle for the dressage. So they sent him back to me, and then he ended up being a incredible horse. He won kind of Grand Prix, puissances, speed classes, and then obviously the Derby. So he won it twice. Yeah, so the first year he really loved the big arena and jumping on grass, and he was a very bold horse. And with that eventing background, I did really think that the Derby was going to suit him. And I remember jumping because I jumped clear, but I had one time fault, so I was very worried that that it wasn't going to be good enough. But Jonathan Aslin, I still remember him coming up and telling me, "You'll be right. I've won the Derby with one time fault before, and I think you're going to win it this year." So luckily enough, he was right.
Tell me a little bit about how that felt, because you were new to North America and that's a pretty big event, to say the least. Can you remember what it felt like emotionally?
Yeah, I do. It was, I'd kind of grown up watching Spruce Meadows on TV and always wanting to compete there. And I'd actually gone and watched when I was 8. I'd been out there and watched a few classes, and it was definitely a dream of that main ring and jumping in there, which was an incredible experience. And then to actually win it and be out there for the presentation and then playing the Australian national anthem was, yeah, was it was a great feeling that had kind of been a dream for many years.
And then you go back in 2019 and you're second in the Masters Rolex $3 million class. And I didn't realize until I searched a little more that you were actually second to Beezy Madden.
Yes.
Again, I'm thinking that's another big event. Tell me a little bit about how that played out with Blue Movie.
Yeah, Blue Movie just loved jumping at Spruce Meadows. I think she nearly placed in every Grand Prix she jumped that in that ring, and she was very unlucky on numerous occasions not to win one of those Grand Prix. Yeah, I still remember I had a vertical going into the double down in the second round, which cost us the class. But yeah, to finish second in that class was just an incredible feeling. I mean, it's, the jumps are so big and the course is always tough, especially the second round. Leopoldo does not like clear rounds in that class. And the crowd, the whole atmosphere that day was with such a big prize fund on offer. Yeah, everyone's on edge.
Well, I love that you mentioned the second round was even tougher, because that is something that I have noted with Leopoldo is he progressively makes those rounds more difficult. Whereas a lot of other course designers, the jump off is tough, but it's not normally tougher than the first round. So it is a
Yes.
little bit of reverse psychology. And talk a little bit about your relationship with Blue Movie, because I was also fascinated to learn that you were her partner for 19 years.
Yes. Sue Welsh, the lady that I worked and rode for many years, she actually bred Carrots, as we called her. She bred her. I remember going to this to pick. Her mother was called Showtime, who Nick Skelton took to Atlanta Olympics. I remember driving to the start picking Showtime with her little foal up, and she was already a firecracker. We couldn't catch her. She was just really sharp, and I could tell straight away from dealing with her as a foal that she was going to be special. She was so aware of and so kind of and sensitive. It was really interesting being with her right from the start, and then trying to catch her, which was always difficult. And then it took me months to break her in. She was couldn't even put front boots on her. She was so sensitive, and she took a lot of patience and a long time to kind of get to understand her. And she was a very clever horse. And yeah, a lot of patience required.
Well, and I was also wondering, what's it like to have a mount for that length of time? That's so unusual in the sport. I mean, they're your partner, and to have a partner for that long, I can't even imagine just the understanding and relationship that the two of you had.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. And I certainly miss her because, yeah, she was such a huge part of my life. And I was literally spent nearly every day of 19 years with her. Obviously, when she was a foal, be in the barn or feeding them in the winter or checking them every day in the summer. So, and then riding her, she was in the stable. It was a very strange feeling when, after 19 years of her being with me and seeing her nearly every, not having her, because I sent her back to England to breed from her there. So she's, I'm still in Florida. So she's, yeah, it's strange not seeing her every day.
I imagine it's strange for her too,
I think she's happy about it.
because I do find that mares give you more. There's
Definitely.
just some sort of extra that they'll give you when they really love you. And you just can't duplicate that with geldings and stallions. I don't know why that is, but it has been my experience that that's the case. So I would imagine it has been tough for you because she retired last year. Was it in May last year that she retired?
The year before.
Okay,
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, was it last year? I forget. It seems like a long time ago now. Um,
Either way, it seems like a lifetime to you, I'm sure.
she did everything for me. And every time she would ring, she gave 100, and it was really incredible what she achieved for me. And as I said before, it took a lot of understanding. It took me a long time to figure her out, and definitely wasn't conventional. And I think I had to learn to do things her way. That was it. And then when we agreement, she won a lot for me.
I think the other interesting thing I thought was that you actually qualified with her for the Olympics in Tokyo. And I know you chose not to go because you were going to be the spare, which seems to me like a very valid decision, given it would have been quite a trip to be going all the way to Tokyo with no guarantee that you were actually going to ride. And I also remember thinking that those Olympics had to be so odd for riders because there's so much about the team atmosphere. And if you couldn't interact with anybody, I can't imagine what it would be like. And you don't get to feel the whole experience of interacting with other athletes at other events. How hard was it for you at your end to make that decision?
Yeah, it was a tough decision. And, it was a very strange situation, the whole Olympic during COVID. And yeah, I agree that I think a major part of going to the Olympics would be the Olympic experience and being in the Olympic Village with all the other incredible athletes, and not being able to go and watch the other events, and also not being able to have your kind of friends and family there, because we'd already planned for everyone to kind of come here the year before. And I think that's kind of a whole Olympic experience is to, and then having that, COVID, and the horses not being able to travel from, I was based in America, a kind of one flight from America to Tokyo, and having all your friends and family there, and the horses had to fly to Europe and do quarantine, and then fly through the Middle East to Tokyo, and then they had to fly back to Europe and then back to America. It was a lot of traveling, and a lot of horses didn't really do much in the sport after Tokyo. And I think the day it came down, was I go for me, was I going for the horse? And the horse's welfare, of it was a lot to ask, the possibility of not even jumping. And I do think I had the horse at the time, and she went and actually won a four-star Grand Prix same week that the Olympics was on. There was a bit of controversy with the selectors, but that's the way things go.
Yeah, because I understand that you were actually top ranked rider, if I'm not mistaken, at the time for
Yeah.
Australia. But yes, I
Yeah.
guess that's the thing with these selection committees is it doesn't always go according to plan. I find it quite interesting because this past week, when I spoke with Michelle Vancourt, who went to the 76 Olympics, he was told in no uncertain times the only way he was making that team was if he finished in the top two in the qualifying events. And he did, so it worked out in his favor. But it's interesting in your case that it didn't work that way. So I think that's the subjective side of show jumping.
Yes, yes. And it had been quite a strange up beforehand with show because of COVID, and it was very unusual times, really. So it was a real shame, obviously, that the Olympics had been cancelled, and because I feel Australia, we were going to the three team members, the four actually going to suit us because sometimes we don't have as much depth. Well, most of them don't have as much depth as the other countries. So we had three really good horse combinations at that point, and our horses were on good form. But anyway, that's
I guess that's the sport, isn't it?
yes,
And I
yes.
was curious to hear your take on that new format because I've heard from a lot of riders with this whole new team format of only 3 horse rider combinations being eligible instead of the 4 of them with a spare. It really puts a lot of pressure on the horses.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually great for the horses because with only the three members and all breeding, you have to, for the sake of your team, you have to finish. And as we know with horses, that's not always the case. So, and sometimes you're better off to not finish the round for the welfare of your horse. So I think it is quite tough having that three. And you see people normally retire having fish for the sake of the team. I don't think it's great, but I do think that it would have suited Australia that year.
Absolutely. Let's move forward to your current string of mounts because you've got, I think, 7, if I counted correctly, this year. One for sure, the Ford Delando PS, you've had for about a year, which I would still say is kind of a new partnership, especially when you had a partner for 19 years. I would imagine it feels like you're still exploring the relationship. Maybe share with our listeners a little bit about him.
He's gelding. I have a new stallion called Handsome who
Okay.
he's a 4-year-old, but yeah, I only got him. First show was him with him was the 5-star here at Spruce Meadows a few years ago. So that was going right in the deep end.
And I think that's the round I actually saw. And he looks like he's not easy in terms of the control. So maybe share a little bit about him, and then we'll go to Ford Orlando PS because you've had some tremendous success on in the last year.
Yes, so Handsome is a very new rider. We only got him in May. A friend of mine, Simon Crippen in England. So with him being Australian, he flew directly to Bruce. So it was my first show with him. And so getting to know him was a very good. We just had one down in the first Grand Prix and we finished 10th. So I was very happy with that, considering it was my third class. And then I think he was a little bit of worn out with the second week and 2 down. We had 1 week off and it really freshened him up. And now we're getting to know a lot better. And he was actually very yesterday. We just second last pole, so 1 down, but we finished 6th. Looking forward to Queen's Cup next week, which is a big challenge here at Spruce. We're having fun with him.
Well, I didn't realize he was that new a partner. That's amazing, Ben, what you've achieved if it's been a month. My goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea. It just seemed like you had to ride him very calculated, but that would make perfect sense because you're just learning to know where he's at when you're in the ring. And those rings are big and they get on a long gallop and I'm sure it's not simple when it's a new horse and a stallion to boot.
Yes. Yeah, it would have been nice to maybe have done a couple of smaller shows. I came to Spruce to jump the Grand Prix on him, but time permit that. So
then let's talk a little bit about for Delando PS, because as I said, you've had some pretty good success with him in the last year. And if I'm correct, he came from Andre Thiem. Is that right?
yes, yes. My friend Andre comes to Florida every winter and he brought him over and he won a couple of classes on and he is a little tricky. He's certainly got lots of energy. And so I was lucky to have a group of people buy for me and then we were excited to have him and we went Texas, and he was second in a Grand Prix there week. But he's taken a bit of work to get to know, his own, and he's done some really good things for us. So it's exciting to see what the future holds for him. Yeah, he was really Thunderbird. He was fourth in the 4-star Grand Prix Thunderbird, and he won a ranking class, and he jumped rank. But I had 2 time faults in the Grand Prix last week, so he stepped up and jumping well.
And what have you found difficult about learning with him?
Well, he has lots of energy, so he is quite highly strung. Just kind of getting him to kind of relax and trade and just slow down a little bit, slow his mind and his body, and getting him a little bit stronger and figuring them all out. They're all kind of different and have different ways of doing things. So it's kind of finding out what works best for him.
I was only curious because I had this conversation with Shane Sweetenham recently, and he has a mount that he said it's always changing the bit because the horse doesn't really like being controlled and he likes his own space. And so I just wondered what the challenge with this particular mount was. But I can understand if they have a lot of energy and they're anxious, then
Yeah,
it's trying to put that together in a way, because obviously the more relaxed they are, the better they jump. I can appreciate that.
yeah. I don't know. I don't change bits too often. I only kind of use a couple of different bits my horses, but I kind of try to, I don't know, to do a lot of, basic flat work and to, yeah, just get them stronger and get them, they have to, when they're feeling really good in themselves, in their body, they're normally much easier to ride. So I'm always thinking the horse is trying to tell us if they're sore here or weak there. And so I've really been working on his strength in his hips and pelvis and getting him stronger there so he can hold himself much rather than being in the mouth. So it's kind of, yeah, and just get him relaxed. And he's so aware of everything going around, which makes it good, but it's challenging sometimes too.
Well, and on that same vein, I was wondering, do you do a lot of body work, like with massage or chiropractic? Because that I would imagine would go hand in hand with your approach.
Yes, we do. And I think all kind of our day-to-day exercise and riding them, pulling them on the flat is kind of the same way. I feel like Pilates must and a lot of athletes, like when we're riding the horses, we're actually kind of trying to train them and doing a bit of that, getting them supple and more flexible and stronger and their core strength and making them very aware of where their body is and how to use their body correctly. And I feel like that's a lot that we have to do when we ride them and work them.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by the international law firm of Cooley LLP. Clients partner with Cooley on transformative deals, complex IP and regulatory matters, and high-stakes litigation. Cooley has nearly 1,400 lawyers across 19 offices in the United States, Asia, and Europe, and a total workforce of more than 3,000 people. Our connection to the law firm comes through Cooley partner and jumper rider Cullen Drescher, who competes in the high amateur and Grand Prix levels, in addition to leading Cooley's business restructuring practice from the firm's offices in New York City. Well, and I also wanted to ask you, because you said you only use a couple of bits, what are your bits of choice? Because I've never asked any rider that question, and I thought that's a very valid point, especially since you're not switching up regularly.
I'm definitely one for a rubber pelham. We can have variations. We can have a longer shank or a short shank or a harder rubber pelham or a softer pelham. But yeah, that's definitely my go-to bit.
And I was wondering why the rubber pelham. What is it that you love about that?
I think the way I ride, I like them to have strong contact. I put quite a bit of pressure on my horses, so a lot of leg to hand connection. And I feel like with a rubber pelham, they can hold that and it's not strong or sensitive in their mouth, or I can keep a stronger contact. That's probably it just suits the way I ride, I think.
And then what is the other bit that you would go to?
Well, just a kind of 2-ring snaffle with 2 joins. So that's just a meth. Yeah. So I always like to ride with 2 reins and a couple of horses in that. I don't branch in many different bits, but maybe I should. It might help.
I'm just impressed because I think those are very sophisticated. Using two reins for most riders is just, oh, that's just too much to have to mentally handle. So I think that speaks volumes about your ride, that you do happen to pick something with two reins. To me, that's a whole other level of sophistication in riding.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, Blue Movie was very strong, and I did, when she was much younger, I did rain break on her, and it was rather scary. And I think also just, I don't know, much safer with two reins. And I don't know, it's just become a bit of mine now. And I really feel much, I don't know, secure as such going into the ring with that. It's, yeah, part of my route now.
That makes perfect sense. So maybe just you could share a little bit about also, I know you have Billy Amore, Billy McDermott, if I'm not mistaken. There's Billy Hound Dog, there's Billy Shuffle, Billy Exhale. And I'm guessing these are all horses that have come from the Billy Stud Farm, hence the names. So what's your connection with them?
I've known Bill and Pip Funnel for a long time, actually, since they came to Australia to a show many years ago when I was young. And then when I went to England, yeah, I kind of became good friends with them. And I feel like they produce a lot of good horses, and I do a lot with them. And we bring a lot of Billy horses to America, and I've had great success. I had a horse called Billy Gilder a few years ago who was third for me in a $500,000 prix, and I feel the way that they produce them, it fits in well for my competition and also clients of mine. They've done a lot of success on the Billy horses. So yeah, it's been a good part.
I'm always interested to find out how people find people, because it does seem like a lot of riders have specific breeders that they deal with and have had great success with. And it's not to say they don't get horses from other spots, but they do have go-to people. So I'm always curious as to
Yeah.
know, how did that relationship evolve? But it sounds
Yeah.
like it's been a very long time.
Yes, over a long time. And I feel obviously Will and Pip have achieved in their careers, but they're very kind of basic, true horsemanship that they deal. You can only find a snaffle at the Billy Stud. That's that's what nearly horses snaffles, and they're trained in snaffles, and which makes it much easier for fighters to follow afterwards. So but their horsemanship there is great, and yeah, what those two have achieved in their lives is pretty incredible.
And that's where Blue Movie has gone to be bred, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And where is she in the breeding process now? Does she have any foals coming up soon?
We're trying to take some goes at the moment. We got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old back in Ocala, Florida, that yes, are just about to start their careers. So that's very exciting to see what they're going to be like.
I imagine you must be very excited to
Yes.
have the legacy continue.
Yes. Hopefully they're going to be a bit easier than their mother, but
But don't count on it.
no.
As well, could you share a little bit about how your business has evolved in Ocala? I feel like Ocala has become a mainstay for many riders because you've got both World Equestrian Center and HITS. So it has really changed people's lives in that they don't necessarily have to be traveling all year round to keep their business going and make a living. They can stay put for most of the winter and even part of the summer if you so choose. Was that an easy decision for you to make? Because I think when you came, if I'm not mistaken, that was just about a year or two before COVID. So I don't know if that impacted your decision to stay in Ocala.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of planned. I lived in England for a long time, and I really the English way of life and the horse culture in England, and so I'd planned to come to America for 1 to 2 years, and then COVID happened, and so we were in Florida. Happened, and then ended up staying and started training people, and then the World Equestrian Centre has really made a huge impact on Ocala. I do think Ocala is a very, in the winter, really good horse country, horse environment, and the shows now, there's just incredible, and they're going nearly all round. So it's a very central location, and it's nice to place and not have to travel so much and be able to do high level of competition nearly every week of the year.
I would say the only thing Ocala is missing is a grass ring.
Yes, yes. I do find it's probably why I love coming to Canada, because we jump on grass arenas a lot more in Canada than America, and the same as Europe. We jump on a lot more in Europe. So I do miss that in America. There's not as many rings to jump in, because I feel kind of the real sport jumping on the grass.
It separates the men from the boys, is what we used to say when I was younger, and the women from the girls. And I would agree with you. I do feel like it makes it a different playing field when you've got grass, because it brings in a whole other element of risk.
Yes, definitely. I think with the grass arenas, it does kind of riding the riding part kind of comes through a lot more than on an all-weather surface, where I think the horse plays a lot more of a role in competition. So yeah, those skills come through on the grass. When it rains a bit and a little bit of an incline, you definitely have to know your horse much more on the grass field.
Moving forward, I know we've got World Equestrian Games this fall,
Yes.
and then there's Olympics in another 2 years. What's your long-term dream with your current mounts?
Yes, I think Handsome it would be suitable to the big grass field in Ken. Um, so that would is definitely on the radar, and hopefully a performance next week, and it's included on the team. And obviously the Olympics in LA will be very exciting, being based in America. So that's definitely something to work with, and hopefully a couple of the horses I've got at the moment be really on fire for LA. Then obviously Brisbane in 30 be incredible to go back to Australia and jump at the Olympics in Australia. That would be really a dream, and that's already preparing for that and trying to get a group of horses that will be my age 6 years time, and feel like many people probably get to compete at the Olympics in their home country. So it'd be a real and incredible atmosphere and competition to be at.
I think it would be very fitting if one of Blue Movie's offspring got to go to Brisbane and compete with you.
That would be a bit of a fairy tale for sure.
And I like the fairy tale endings, which
Yes.
often happen in the sports, so don't count it out.
Definitely not.
I want to say thank you so much for taking time out to speak with me today, Rowan. It's always a pleasure to hear people's stories and get their insights. That's why I was asking you so much about the bits you choose and the horsemanship of the people that you've dealt with, because I feel like everybody brings something different to the table and you always learn from them.
Definitely.
And for sure with the bits, that's something to keep in mind myself as an amateur rider, because I can honestly say I've never ridden in a rubber pelham. That's why I was asking you so much about it.
I mean, maybe that's something I have to learn. We are always trying to learn more, and maybe I should use some different bits in the future. But also, I do find that kind of certainly some riders, you can tell, you can look at the horse, what bit they are, and you know who's going to ride it. um, but yeah, we're always trying to learn, and always, and in this sport, all the horses are different, and we can learn something from most horses. And yeah, there's always a new challenge every day.
I feel like most good horse people are students of the sport forever. And I can say, even speaking with Leopoldo Palazzo, who is going to be 80 this year, he just talked about how when he's at the horse shows, he watches classes that he's never seen before just to learn about the course design and what have you. And I'm thinking, if he's doing it, obviously it's important. So I think that's
Definitely,
great to have that attitude. So
definitely.
again, thank you so much for your time and your energy. And I wish you continued success, especially knowing that this week is the North American. We'll be watching with bated breath to see how you do with Handsome and for Delando PS.
Yes,
Take good care.
thank you.
And if you'd like to learn more about the podcast and upcoming guests, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Horse Tales with Kat. And shout out to those listeners in Virginia, Ocala, Montreal, and Toronto. Thanks for your support.